Hello, everybody. Full room, fantastic. Just a reminder, we have a panel later on, and if you want to ask them a question, and you'd rather not do it in person, there is paper and pens at the back there. So you can put your questions on there as well, and then we can read them up and get them in front of the panel as well in that way. I feel I also need to apologize. This is a room full of extroverted introverts, and I ask you all to talk to each other. So apologies for that. I hope it wasn't terrible. Our next talk is going to be amazing. One of the key takeaways of it is learning to pick your fights. And how do you do that when the feedback comes from the community? How do you know that these people that are asking you to do certain things aren't just talking from the nostalgia they have for a sound they heard 20 years ago? And I need to stand here in the light. And how do you explain to people that, you know, you might be an expert in what guns sounds like, but we can't explode speakers to replicate that. That's just impossible. So how do you decide? If there's one series of games that has always put the player experience in the center of attention for sound, it has to be the Battlefield series. And it's really great to have both of you here. And I've written this down. Yes, Rasmus and Danijel, thank you for coming over. And I'm really interested to hear how you solve this problem. So a big hand, please.
So, can you hear me? My mic is on? Yep. Good. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Battlefield 2042, growing the audio experience through an evolving game. This is a presentation about the Battlefield 2042 live service from an audio perspective. So, who are we and why should you listen to us? So, I'm Danijel Djuric. I'm senior sound designer at DICE. I've been there for 3 years, 11 years in the industry. I started out in a hardware team doing mostly combat and gadget and soldier stuff, and later got promoted to lead the audio during live service.
And my name is Rasmus. I'm Danish, and I've been at DICE for 5 years now, and working as a senior sound designer. During live, I was mainly focused to work on UI presentation sounds and music. But let's first talk quickly what Battlefield is, at least 2042. For 2042, we had very high ambitions from DICE. We wanted the traditional infantry-focused Battlefield gameplay with vehicles. We wanted to double the amount of players from 64 to 128 on all maps. Therefore, we also needed larger maps, so even bigger things to do. But we also wanted specialists instead of the normal military grunt soldiers that you have seen in all other battlefields pretty much. Plus, we wanted to do 3 different experiences. There was an all-out warfare, which was the classic Battlefield experience. Portal, which is a user-generated content for players to build their own experiences based on content from Battlefield 1942, Bad Company, and Battlefield 3. And we had Hazard Zone, which was an extraction-like game mode. And of course, all of this while handling COVID-19. But we worked hard, and by 2021, we were ready for launch.
Yeah, so we launched a trailer, and this is how some of the fans reacted.
Let's do this.
Oh, fuck! You're dead!
Man, this looks insane. My heart is 1,000 beats per minute right now.
I legit got chills right now.
Oh, he ejected.
Oh my gosh! You better wingsuit down. Don't tell me you get back in the day.
Holy shit, man.
He always makes me so happy. So we get great reviews from outlets. Players are really looking forward to it. Everyone is hyped, and it just feels like nothing can go wrong, right?
Well, not so fast. Because of the ambitions of the project, plus all the new tech we had to implement to fulfill these ambitions, and a lot of the things coming in late, we did know that there was a lot of things that needed work, and we had a big backlog to fix these things. And sometimes in game development, you just kind of run out of time. So the launch didn't go as we had hoped, and we failed to meet player expectations for what this game should be. So we had a long road ahead.
All right, so we had to improve the game during live or fix it in a post. Everybody loves hearing that, right? But even a live service requires a lot of work. So we have new content for every season we need to add new sounds for. We need to fix bugs. We have a new style and tone direction we need to align to. More about that later. We are getting feedback that we need to act on. Most important, we need to improve the audio somehow, improving stuff that we were not happy with and just overall new ideas.
So how do you adapt to a new perspective post-launch? From a studio point of view, we listened to the players and heard their feedback. One point of feedback that stood above the rest was that the game didn't feel authentic Battlefield enough. We had gone a bit too astray from trying to do new things, and we needed to get back to it. And with that came a style and tone update, that we called it. And some of the things that impacted audio with this update was music, the whole idea of specialists, and maps in general. And if we start with the music, for the beginning, during development, we set out to do something different with this game. The story for Battlefield 2042 was that the world was in shambles. It was broken and disrupted. We wanted the music to reflect this, and Sam Slater and Hildur Gudnadottir, our composers, did an amazing job to get that feeling from the main game of the music. But because it was so new and experimentational, this reception was a bit polarizing. Some people absolutely loved it, of the fans at least, yeah. And some people hated it. With this style and tone update, the last one is. With the style and tone update, we streamlined the story and the feeling of the game to be a more traditional Battlefield game. We weren't able to rework the launch music, so we decided to alter the direction slightly for live service, but still keep the roots of the original soundtrack, focusing more on melodies rather than sonic textures that the original had. And again, Sam and Hildur did an amazing job, so let's listen to some of the differences. And one of the other points was the specialists or characters. Listening to the players' feedback again, we decided to make them more grounded and more gritty. So all the characters got an overhaul to their VO lines, their backstories, the visuals, and animations, with a more serious direction for the performance deliveries as well.
Hey, I've already had 5 cups of coffee. Let's go. Oh, I'm ready. Oh, I climbed Everest. It's been all downhill from there. You get it?
No solo shit up there.
Fight smart and stay alive.
It's simple. Stay alive and we win. Can't wait to see what we find out there. Stay close, stay alert. We draw the line here.
And one of the last things was the map overhauls. With the maps, the feedback was that they felt empty and deserted, even with 128 players running around. So in an effort to make them feel more like a battlefield, all the launch maps got an updated level design, 3D assets, lighting, and VFX. From audio, we worked with the ambiences, spot sounds, and big world packages to make the maps feel more engaging, present, and just supporting this new visual style. The maps were getting war-torn, and so did the audio. And the choices to make the maps more war-torn opened up the ability for the audio team also to build sounds that supported these different materials and objects that were now there physically. And the narrative for each of the maps became that these places were an ongoing battle rather than all the players just arrived there and started fighting. So all in all, it really helped sell the idea of a war-torn place.
All right, so while adapting to a new perspective post-launch with the style and tone and map updates as a studio, the audio team also looked at player feedback to find areas that could be improved the most. So one common feedback we got was, why doesn't the game sound gritty and realistic like Battlefield 3 and 4? Why didn't you just use the assets from those games and call it a day? There's usually a common belief that the sound of a Battlefield game has to be realistic, but all Battlefield games have their own identity, direction, and style, and the audio has to adapt to that. So if we look at this chart, now this is not a 100% accurate chart, it's more of a rough representation to illustrate the different directions. It's pretty impossible to have them exact, like how much real and how much believable everything is. But Battlefield 3 and 4 are leaning towards the real and believable direction, with real-world references using more unprocessed and raw source materials. While Battlefield 2042 would be somewhere here, closer to design and a bit further away from real and believable, having a more design and sometimes cinematic approach. What we tried to do was to nudge the game audio a bit closer to the real and believable section during live to make it work better with the new style and tone rework, but still trying to maintain the game's identity and style. So what is believability? I personally would say it's very close to realistic, but doesn't have to be. It means that the sound has to at least make sense in the context. So why is it playing that sound, and how is it playing that sound? A couple of ways to achieve this would be to work with organic, non-synthesized sounds, sounds that people can relate to from real world, and worldizing the sound as much as possible. So the futuristic railgun tank is a good example of this. We wanted to make it sound grounded and stay away from making it sound too sci-fi. This video will demonstrate 3 examples. Just see. When a tank goes into stationary siege mode, those sounds are based on large construction vehicles and garbage trucks. The charge up before the shot is based on vibrating metal. And the rail cannon firing is based on whooshy tearing elements from real cannons. Moving on to the next feedback. Another common one is the game sounds so low, bassy, and compressed, not immersive enough. So there were several reasons for this. Our new abstraction system was giving us a lot of false positives, obstructing sounds a little bit too well. So we decided early on to move back to our previous systems. But the game also had a lower dynamic range compared to previous titles. We tried to make all sounds more reliable so that players wouldn't miss out on anything. But the problem with that is if you play everything, you end up hearing nothing. So sounds didn't get their special moment. So we believed that increasing the dynamic range with our HDR system would solve many of these problems. HDR is an automatic mixer and priority system, a way to fake dynamic range and make sounds feel really loud when needed. So a quick explanation how the HDR works. So a game without HDR has a fixed dynamic range scale. You have the lowest audible threshold in the upper roof before digital clipping, almost like a frame painting. So in a shooter, the placement of the sound categories would maybe look like something like this. You have ambience and footsteps on the lower part, and then you have the loud sounds like combat, explosion, and weapons on the top because you want them to feel loud and impactful. So what HDR allows us to do is to place sounds above this range, or paint outside the frame, if you will. We categorize them with different loudness values. Higher values have higher priority and sounds louder. It allows us to fake the dynamic range and extend it. So when a sound with a higher loudness value is playing, the HDR window is moving up to frame that sound and focus on that sound. And the sounds below that window are no longer audible and will get culled. And that gives us an illusion that the sounds are louder than they actually are. So our solution was to scale all values, scale the whole game, and when the dynamic range was increased, the difference between the categories became larger and had more of an impact on experience. Every sound now had more of their own moments. So scaling the HDR would also make a positive impact with the new smaller maps. Air vehicles and combat sounds can be heard almost across the whole map. So with smaller maps, all the combat got closer to the player. It naturally became loud and noisy. The HDR would now focus more on relevant and close sounds, and the experience suddenly felt more tailored and subjective, putting you as a player in the center of everything. We could also mix the map sounds a bit louder now. At launch, when the dynamic range was low, we had to compromise and mix them lower to give room for combat and game, for combat sounds and avoid muddiness. So we were pretty excited to see the players' reactions, if they will even notice the impact of this. Unfortunately, we realized that not many are aware what HDR is and how it works. So that's something we need to be better at explaining in the future. Some of the reactions we got when we posted the patch notes. HDR, do I have to buy new equipment for this? No. Great, now the game will be louder. It is already loud and busy. That's actually what we tried to fix. Thank you. And my favorite one, when it was actually released. The game sounds better. I think they updated the engine. So no street cred for us. Another player feedback. The weapons sounds too weak and not satisfying enough. So all our warfare weapons and the Portal weapons had different directions. Warfare had its own identity. Portal tried to sound like the weapons from the different games they were based off. So when some of the portal weapons became unlockable weapons in warfare, it got more obvious that a different direction approach would be an issue. Oh, now I'm messing up. Close your eyes. Now we're back on track. So we had to, the mixed direction worked in Portal, but for some reason it didn't really glow when we put them in the warfare mode. So we had to mix all the weapons to be more consistent and make them sound like they all belonged in the same world. So to better understand how we build the weapons with all the layers, I'm going to show you the logic. This is a weapon patch. This is the logic where we build the weapons, just for firing the weapon. And I'm going to try to show the different layers and illustrate the stereo width and an amplitude for each layer in the mix to have some kind of idea what a weapon consists of. Let's see. So core bass is a punchy bass part and a transient in a weapon. It's a mono source. The hi-fi, what we call, is the high frequency of the weapon, a metallic mechanical mono sound. Then we have the rattle. It's a really pretty low mixed mono source. It's the rattly metallic physical sound of the weapon shaking. Then we have the noise. Noise is the first stereo sound in a weapon. The noise tells you what kind of environment you're in. The reflection is a tail of the noise, also based on environment. So the last one is a bit special. That's a stereo layer that we didn't use on every weapon as a default layer. It was kind of a special extra layer we used when we wanted to add some extra character to a weapon, or if we found that two weapons sounded too alike, so we just made a new layer just to make it more distinguished. We call it the add layer. Short. So what we noticed was weapons with add layer felt different. It gave the weapon more presence and more stereo width. So we decided that it should be a part of every weapon and not just something extra on some of them. It will also be more time efficient to create add for the weapons missing that layer than going through all the weapons to redo everything. So for some weapons, it would be barely audible, just giving some extra stereo width, but for some weapon, it would change the character totally. Let's see if we can hear it with the speaker. All right. So we also wanted to improve the distant slapback for the weapons. At launch, we had one fixed slapback point on each map without the ability to manually place them. So we kind of spawned them randomly on the map. So we sent parts of the weapon to a specific bus, and the sound would play back from that point with a delay and filter based on distance. On some maps, the direction wouldn't make sense if it was a desert or an open field or sea. So instead of having one direction, we made it possible to manually place up to 4 direction points on a map, usually on tall structures, mountains, or other large objects that would make more sense for the sounds to bounce off. The result is a more dynamic slapback, sometimes from several points, with different delays, making the weapon feel more grounded in the world. Why? Close your eyes again. You're my typical wizard.
That one doesn't want to play for some reason. Let's try again. No?
All right. All right.
And try and do this. Sorry. It worked.
It works.
So, learning to pick your fights. So during live service, you can't do everything you want. You still have to make the new content and keep the players engaged. So to pick your fights is also to figure out what gives the most bang for your buck. And one of the things we decided to focus a bit more on was this smoke and mirrors effect. For sounds that doesn't necessarily have anything in the world to be tied to, but just like works as an audio-only sense when the players are in the right context or situation. One of those situations was the sonic boom. If a jet is flying full speed for a few seconds, there's a small chance to trigger a sonic boom with no complicated logic or deep math really needed for that. Another area we decided to focus on was the sector transition, where that would only happen really in the game mode breakthrough. In Battlefield 1, we had fake soldiers in the distance blowing whistles and the sound of charging from one trench to the other. We wanted to give the players the same experience of storming the next objective in breakthrough. So we added an alarm for the next sector that opens up in the game mode and a sense of being under attack. And we faked like an ambient war with soldiers charging in.
You have new objectives. Secure the sector.
Out of context in videos like this, it does sound very weird. But during a match, you never really realize that these things aren't near you, because we designed the sounds to be distant enough that you wouldn't try and like directly look for them, but prominent enough to add to your senses and the feeling. And this was also so that the players wouldn't react weirdly to it. And speaking of reaction, another place we knew that we could get more bang for the buck was utilizing our impulse system a bit more. We had it at launch, but took the opportunity to expand upon it during live service, since we didn't manage to focus on it during the main production, again, simply because of time. The impulse system is essentially a way for a sound to trigger other sounds based on the distance and context. You can have a sound trigger impulses from its own position, or you can have the sound trigger impulses based on the listener's position. With this, we can have impulses placed around the map in prefabs or in the world, and whenever a sound that we've set to trigger impulses, like explosions, when they happen, we play additional reaction sounds from these in-world placed impulses. An example of this are the fence rattles, the containers and silo resonance that we have a lot of on the map. finding smaller things that we could like easily make a lot of content for to then improve the experience for the players. And after a year or so of live service, acting on feedback and constantly improving the audio, the game was in a much better place, which meant that we had time to start thinking outside the box and try to engage with the players a bit more than just, directly. And we did this in a couple of different ways. One way was through story-driven events like foreshadowing upcoming seasons with lore where audio was in focus.
I know why you're here. You believe Project Silver Spear is a weapon. That's a lie. No hard feelings, Exodus. As it stands, no paths fall under acceptable losses if we could. Zero hesitation.
That has to be one of the most impressive explosion and sound effects in any Battlefield game so far.
And of course, all of these things are not just audio working on it. It takes the whole studio and everyone rallying behind it to make it work. And another thing that made it possible to sneak in was Easter eggs, where we could just give the players something to look out for. And all these things, help engage the players, really.
I see. What?
What the hell was that?
So again, it's something that goes beyond what the game actually is and constantly gives the players something new to experience.
So a more local Easter egg, if you live or ever visit Stockholm, you might recognize this Easter egg, or at least the voice of it. In Season 3, we introduced the map Spearhead that was located in Sweden. Inside the two factories, you can hear an information voice coming out from the PA speakers. So we wanted to do something extra with the choice of voice actress to make it feel a bit more grounded in the real world, especially if you live in Stockholm and recognize them. Anybody been in Stockholm recognize the voice? No? Okay. So, all right, I won't judge you if you didn't recognize it, but the voice actress is one of the information voices in the Stockholm Metro and commuter PA system.
Nästa, Stockholm Odenplan. Byte till övriga pendeltågslinjer samt byte till tunnelbanans gröna linje. Tåget fortsätter mot Tumba.
So if you wonder why I'm actually filming the seat, is because I tried to record the sign for the next station, and right before the voice came, so somebody just stood there and started staring at me, like looking like, why are you filming me? It's like, I am filming the seat instead. Don't want to be a creep. So we were so happy with her contribution and her warm, welcoming voice, so we brought her back to voice our friendly murder robots in season 6. You guys. All right.
So all of this takes us a bit to where we are now. It's been almost 3 years since we launched 2042 with 7 seasons and 43 updates. And Battlefield 2042 is actually in its best state that it's ever been. And we even managed to beat our peak concurrent player count almost 2 years after release. But of course, it's obviously not just us two working on the game. So it's important to mention that everyone, and to thank everyone across EA and the colleagues and amazing talent that has worked on and kept working on it during the production and the live service of the game. And one of the takeaways. So what did we learn? We pretty much learned that everything can be fixed in post. But not really, though.
No.
But
don't quote us, please.
We had high expectations for the main game, and a lot of franchise-first things were tried, as well as new tech. And sometimes game development just doesn't go as planned. But live service makes it possible to reevaluate and refine the direction and systems from the main game while having a meaningful dialogue with our players. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right, I guess we have time for questions. Oh, we got.
Wait, we need the.
We can get a mic. Oh, get the mic to Smalls.
So the people in the recording.
It's hard to see. I got a lamp right shining in my eyes. Ah.
Thank you for the talk. That was really good. Just wondering, how granular did you get when you enabled HDR? How much additional work did it take, and how far down did you dig into it?
To scale the HDR?
Yeah.
Well, we kind of tried to mimic old games. I can't remember which one we tried to aim for, but the problem was but some assets we did for this game didn't really sound well when we had like a louder or wider range. So we had to find a threshold. I can't remember how much we actually scale it, but it wasn't just scale it and then call it a day. It was we had to go and tweak some sounds, especially sounds that had a long distance range that suddenly felt a little bit too loud on the distance. So we had to do some additional tweaking, and then I think most time went to test everything, just to test and see that everything sounded okay in every situation, like various combat situations and maps and yeah, all situations.
Thanks.
Anyone else? There's one.
Some in the middle as well.
Hi. Thank you. Very nice presentation. I like the slap back and the reaction to explosion. I know it's not just about explosions, but so I have a very non-sound designy question. It's more about when you record it in the public spaces and you got this voice, the announcement voice, I guess. I wanted to ask if there is any legal issue with that kind of thing, and how do you deal with that?
We did get the voice actress that did the VO for the metro stations. So it was like through the proper means. We didn't just go and get the voices, but we got the same actress who did the voices.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you for the talk. I love the impulse system. Could you explain technically how you implemented that, or a little bit of divulge a little bit into that? So
it's based more on a system that we have, which is just a label-based system that was made for Battlefield 2042 as well, because we did have larger maps. We knew that it might be easier to just place labels like in all trees, and if that tree was then used on multiple levels, we could still have different sounds on the labels themselves. So it was just like a spreadsheet of sounds, and then based on what level and what weather state we were in, if it was stormy or rainy, it could switch out the sounds. But because we had all this label information around the world, we realized that we could also use that system to then play sounds from that were just triggered by other sounds based on distance, because we already had the distance to those spot sounds or those like ambient volumes or whatever. So it was a evolution of that system that.
So was it done in the audio middleware, or was it sort of more like a blueprint type thing where you do a distance check and if anything's within that range?
So we like in using Infrasted, we have our own like proprietary like audio engine as well. So it was built by one of our audio programmers called Axel Schiller, and worked very well. He worked on it for some time, of course, but in the end, it really opened up to like these reactionary sounds that we could play.
That's actually also like a bang for the buck story, because in the beginning we just had it for fences, I think, mostly fences, and then we tried to later in season 6 or 7 we wanted to use this system more, but we didn't have time to do it really. So we thought like if we could put it on one sound, where can we put it? And then we realized, we have containers on every map, and that's also like a running joke, like people making jokes that we are just container field or something like that, because we have so many containers in the game. So it's like, that's an easy bang for the buck. We put it on containers and we automatically be on every level. So, and the silos and systems, Cool.
It might be
1 minute left.
Question.
Thanks for the talk. I think the weapons layers and the way that you build up the sound overall was really interesting, but I was curious about like how are you sourcing each of those components? Is that a generated thing, real world recordings, or Foley, trickery, magic?
It's a mix. We have been recording throughout the years for all the games, and of course we're always looking to record new updated sounds also. But it's a mix of our own sounds, and of course we get libraries and so on if we have things we feel we are missing. But first and foremost, we're trying to source our own recordings.
And it's pretty much all recordings. There's no real like synthesized parts of it as well.
Cool, thanks.
Got a quick question. Did you get any feedback that even though it was a lot of feedback all saying the same thing, you went, no, that's not what we want to do, so we're just going to ignore that?
I think the most common was, why don't you just like I mentioned, like why don't you just swap out the sounds? Just take the Battlefield 3 sounds. People like the Battlefield 3 and 4 sound because they're gritty and kind of realistic. So people thought that we could just like take those assets and replace, and then everything will be fine and dandy. But that's not how it works. So, I don't know. Do you know anything else?
I mean, it's a general thing, I guess, where you want to listen and you want to like respect player opinions, but again, like with the music, like there will be like very polarizing opinions on things, and in the end, we also still have to like adhere to the audio direction that the game has, and like to follow or to at least like move into the player feedback. The audio direction itself also kind of moved a bit to then like give space for those things that we felt ourselves, so we could also, yeah, change around or move. So it's an ever-evolving thing in the end.
Is that all the questions? Is there any more?
Time's up. I can barely see. I got.
Right, I just want to say, can we give Rasmus and Danijel a massive round of applause? That was awesome.